NFL fans, what is poppin', man? It's your boy Mark here with NFL Marc Draft. Hope y'all having a wonderful day, man. Follow me at Marquee Sports Denver if you love the Denver sports channel, if you love talking about Denver Broncos. But today we talk about the draft. We talk about NFL news on this new channel that we had just started up. And I really wanted to talk about the head coaching vacancies, man. Y'all know I love the draft. Y'all know I love my Denver Broncos. And I do love it when my team is actually looking for a new head coach in a weird way. Obviously, that's usually not a good sign, right? That means you suck. Or in one scenario here, we had a coach that, kind of stepped away for health concerns after, Kubiak left here. But I always find it to be really enticing. But man, these are the types of decisions that really make or break franchises, obviously. But in a lot of ways, too, man, it seems like just the stupid organizations continuously get this so wrong. So let's take a look at all of the head coach openings, talk about each and every one, how attractive they all are individually. And then we'll also go through like how the draft actually affects, I think, a lot of the decisions that some of these teams, some of these coaches will ultimately make. So, yes, John Harbaugh has been fired from Baltimore, which I'm not saying I'm really surprised by. I think it took a couple days. I thought he was safe. I think it's the good move by the Ravens, but it's really crazy having the Ravens have a head coaching vacancy because really in my entire life, I only know two Ravens head coaches, right? Same thing with the Steelers. That's another kind of organization. They've always had really good stability there. So it's a little bit strange, but without a doubt, no way around it. No way that you can spin it. Even somebody like myself, who's not really a big Lamar Jackson fan, I know you can shred me in the comments if you want. But the Ravens is definitely the most attractive job. Lots of talent. They obviously have Lamar Jackson there. They got a really good history. They got a lot of good young guys, a lot of good building blocks that I think they can build on. And most importantly, they got a really good organization. Ownerships, the GM is a stud. You get a lot of job security when you go there. So very, very well-respected organization. So I think the Ravens are probably the most attractive job of all of them. Number two, I would say, is between the Giants and the Falcons. The Falcons, because I think they actually have a pretty good roster. The questions at quarterback is a little bit scary for me. But you got Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London, you got Kyle Pitts, who really took a big step. I mean, you've got some weapons that are intriguing, and then you got some good young pass rushers on the defensive side. The Giants, Jackson Dart, some people believe in him, some people don't. So that's going to change the level of intrigue that you have. But you have another premium position. The big issue with the Giants head coaching job is that Joe Shane's still going to be the GM, and so that relationship is going to be really important. Super important, actually. And if it was me, like Adam Schefter did talk about one of the early, like the favorite right off the bat for the Giants is going to be John Harbaugh. Like they really, really, really want John Harbaugh, understandably so. They want him badly. And I think that that's a really attractive job for him. I think if he likes Jackson Dart and it's a really good organization with the Mara family, that would be really attractive to him. But I think if they hire him, they're willing to get rid of the GM should John Harbaugh want somebody else to be the GM there. So we will see. The third most, I guess now the fourth most attractive. So I'll rank it Ravens, Giants, Falcons. Those would be my top three. Number four, in my opinion, would be the Titans because they do got Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward showed a lot of really good things. I think there's going to be coaches out there that are really excited to build a team around him and utilize his tools. And I think that that's a pretty good situation to be in. There is some instability, though, when it comes to the organization as a whole, right? Hiring a GM, firing a GM, doing all the gymnastics there. The ownership situation is a little bit murky, I'd say. But nonetheless, Cam Ward makes the Titans' job very attractive. They got some young guys on there, too. Number five, I guess, on this list, in my opinion, would probably be, unfortunate to say it, but the Raiders. And that's just because the Raiders have the number one pick, right? And that's always going to be a really good thing. I mean, you get your pick of the litter. You get a guy. He gets to handpick his quarterback and dictate the way that his franchise is going to go. I wouldn't say Mark Davis is a terrible owner, but he's not a good one. But, being in Vegas is a really attractive place for a lot of people to go to. Historic franchise. So them having the number one overall pick is really big time. I would say number six, in my opinion, would be, God, choosing between the Browns and the Cardinals is like miserable. I'd say the Browns just because they got Myles Garrett. They got a good defense in place. But that's pretty much about it. Everything else there's just a shit show. And the Cardinals are probably going to be the last one. They have a lot of question marks at a lot of different positions on the roster. They've drafted decently well, but the quarterback position there's a huge question mark there. They got some aging guys. They've got some young players, but they haven't fully developed. And they're the Cardinals. It's not really the best place in the world to coach either. So that would be kind of the way that I would list that out. But it's going to be interesting. But I think for me, man, like my predictions currently right now, I think the one of the favorites or somebody that I think makes a lot of sense for the Ravens is Kevin Stefanski. They're very familiar with him, being that he coached in Cleveland. I think he's a very underrated coach. I think he's done a marvelous job in a terrible situation and really maximized everything that he's had in Cleveland. He goes to Baltimore. He's going to have a much better roster. He's going to have a quarterback like he's never had, even close to, in Lamar Jackson. And most importantly, he's going to have an ownership group and a GM that are about as opposite of the Browns as possible. A lot of stability there. I think he would make a ton of sense. He's familiar with the NFC North. I think that helps. And they're able to witness firsthand like just how good of a coach he is. So that would be a really good pairing, in my opinion, would be Kevin Stefanski going to the Ravens. I love the idea of John Harbaugh going to the Giants. I have an affinity for the Giants. I got a kind of a deep love for them because Eli Manning beat the Patriots when I was growing up twice in the Super Bowl. I love Tom Coughlin. They've probably always been like my second favorite team. And so I like that franchise. I think that would be a really good fit. I think it's contingent upon how does John Harbaugh feel about Jackson Dart, right? But I think he could bring, he's got his staff. He can bring his staff in. He can really get the culture there right. That's for sure. And he can really maximize a lot of the talent they have on that team because they've got a lot of talent offensively and defensively, man. Like Cam Scadaboo looked good. Obviously, Jackson Dart showed flashes. Malik Neighbors, one of the best receivers already in the NFL. Theo Johnson's a really good young tackle that I like. On the defensive side of the ball, man, I mean, Abdul Carter, you talk about Kayvon Thibodeau. They've got a lot of really good talent. And so I think it's a really attractive place. And New York's a big market, but John Harbaugh would fit in really well there. He'd be able, his personality, the experience that he has, won't be a problem at all going to the New York media, in my opinion. So I like that one a lot. But yeah, I mean, again, let's go through the Giants. Other guys on that roster too. Bobby Okereke, who I think is a good linebacker. Brian Burns, hell of a pass rusher. Dexter Lawrence, one of the best interior guys. I mean, they've got a lot. They've got a lot of pieces to work with, and I think that he's going to have some stability there that he likes with the Mara group and everything. That would be a home run hire for the Giants, a home run hire. And they would, if that were to happen, they would be an immediate favorite of mine to go from like last in their division to playoff team in 1 year. I think that could be a really quick turnaround for them. No doubt about it. All right, let's get into the Falcons. The Falcons is a weird one for me, right? When you're looking at the Falcons, I think the Falcons, man, like, you never really can take that team seriously because it seems like every year they've got a lot of talent on the roster, but that's about it. Nothing really good ever comes of it very consistently. I mean, I know Dan Quinn had a nice little run, made it to the Super Bowl, had a huge choke job there. But one attractive thing about it is that, again, you've got a lot of talent and you're playing in a really bad division in the NFC South. And so that would be something that I think could make a ton of sense. I think for me, one of the fits that I really like for the Falcons with Michael Penix and then, maybe even Kirk Cousins, if he stays there for another year, is Clint Kubiak. First of all, I think Clint Kubiak is just going to be a really good head coach. I think he's a great play caller. Obviously, we love the Kubiak ties here in Denver. But here's the thing, like the Kubiak style of offense, which is obviously comes from the Shanahan tree, is such a quarterback-friendly offense. We know that Kirk Cousins is very familiar with it. So if you're going to keep him for another year, which I think his money's still guaranteed or there might be in their interest to do so, you could at least squeeze as much juice out of him as you possibly can. Is he going to get you to a Super Bowl? No. He might not even get you to a playoff win, but at least he's a legitimate bridge quarterback, depending on the injury status and everything with Michael Penix. If Michael Penix ends up being healthy, I think that Clint Kubiak could really help maximize him, keep him healthy, develop like consistently use the run game. And I tell you what, like, you guys think Bijan Robinson's good now? Bijan Robinson with a legitimate Kubiak Shanahan coached wide zone scheme the proper way, man, that's crazy. That would be crazy. So I like that fit a lot. I also think that Clint Kubiak would make sense in a place like Vegas, which we'll talk about here later, for sure. So I love that. Let's get back into this. So another one. So the other one for me was the Raiders. Yeah, I do like Clint Kubiak for the Raiders. I think he makes a lot of sense there. Brian Flores has been kind of floated around as someone that could make sense there. I kind of like Brian Flores in the Raiders because of the ties that he has with Tom Brady when they were in New England. That could maybe tip the scale a little bit. I think Brian Flores is also a hell of a coach. Thought he got the short end of the stick in his time with Miami. He went and kind of sued the NFL, all that kind of stuff. I think that it's been enough time has passed to where he could legitimately maybe be considered. But he would help with like the attitude and the culture and at least getting that defense right. And then hiring a good offensive coordinator to be able to do what they can in terms of maximizing the young quarterback that I think they'll ultimately draft with the number 1 overall pick. The Titans is another one that's a little bit strange for me because like you see the list of guys that they've already interviewed or have requested to interview, and it's not all that sexy. Let me pull it up here because I just had it, but then I X'd out of it like an idiot. But there's some guys that follow like Tic Tac Titans and a couple other guys on YouTube that have not really have not really been happy with it. But so far it's Lou Anarumo, Vance Joseph, Raheem Morris, Matt Nagy, Steve Spagnuolo, and Kevin Stefanski. Listen, Vance Joseph, I think, is going to get a legitimate hire. Raheem Morris, I think that really they're doing these two guys, though, because of the Rooney Rule. I think the Rooney Rule is terrible. That's for an entirely different discussion. But I think it does so much more harm than good, in my opinion. But it's whatever. That's a whole nother debate. We don't want to make it all controversial. But Raheem Morris really just doesn't make sense this early after his second failed stint. I thought it was a good hire by the Falcons initially because I was like, a lot of time went by. Raheem Morris clearly has kind of grown a lot as a coach. And he wasn't terrible with the Falcons, but it definitely was not the greatest. But anyways, none of these guys are really going to make it that happy. Like, I love Vance Joseph, being a Bronco fan. I think he's going to get a head coaching job. I hope he doesn't selfishly, but then for him as a person, because he's a great person, I would love for him to. I don't think Tennessee's a good fit. Lou Anarumo doesn't make a good fit either. It's probably going to be one of these two guys. Honestly, Borgonzi, I think is his name. The GM has a lot of ties to the Chiefs. And even though you see it a lot of the times, like when guys have ties to a previous organization and they try to bring those ties over, it fails way more often than it works. But history tends to repeat itself. And so they'll probably go with Matt Nagy or Steve Spagnuolo. But I'll tell you what, like, this one is not done. They're going to have a lot more names on here. And the Indiana coach, has been floated around here. He's been floated around for the Raiders too. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot. But ultimately, like, I think right now Matt Nagy, Steve Spagnuolo are the favorites. But they'll probably end up hiring someone that's not on this list. Kevin Stefanski would be an amazing hire for him. But I think now with the Ravens job opening up and him kind of having his pick of the litter still, he might elect to go elsewhere, in my opinion. So we'll see. Who else did we have on the list? The Cardinals and the Browns were two shitty ones. Yeah, not a lot of interviews yet. The Browns, Todd Monken, Aiden Durde, and then you've got the Cardinals. These ones are really like impossible for me to even try to predict, to be honest with you. But a lot of people have tied Vance Joseph to the Cardinals. I think that makes a lot of sense because he was the defensive coordinator there a few years ago. So that would actually make sense. And that certainly could happen with the Cardinals. But I really have no idea. They seem like a team that needs a culture builder and someone that could really maximize the roster for a year or two as they figure out who their franchise quarterback is going to be and be able to build an actual identity because they're a very confusing team. So I have no idea, and it's not a really attractive job. So that's just tough. It's a tough one to try to navigate for me. Robert Saleh is being interviewed. I don't know if he'd want to make the mistake of going to another organization with dysfunction like he did with the Jets. But I think Robert Saleh is awesome. And I think he would be a really good fit in a lot of different places. Um, like he would make sense for the Falcons too. I think he kind of fits, what they would like there. But I don't know. I don't really know for the Cardinals. I think obviously it's way too early. But I'd love to know if you guys have any opinions about like who would be a good fit for the Cardinals legitimately. And then same with the Browns. Like if you gave me a list of any head coach, like even if a head coach is currently employed, I can choose any head coach in the NFL or past head coach that would make sense for the Cleveland Browns and be able to like take them to the promised land. It's like you don't even feel confident in anybody that you would choose. Bill Belichick in his prime, you're still like, but it's the Browns. Andy Reid, it's still the Browns. You know, and that's why I think what Kevin Stefanski did was so impressive because he really maximized the roster. I mean, he took an old Joe Flacco, washed Joe Flacco, and made the most out of what it is that he had. So that's why I was really surprised that they got rid of him. But I have no idea, man. Like this feels like one of those places that they're just going to hire somebody that really wants a bigger paycheck, and maybe he's a young up-and-comer, and maybe they hit the lottery. But I have no idea who would be ideal for the Browns. I really have no clue because it's like I joked about this, but in a weird way, this would be a very Browns thing to do, and at least you would garner a lot of media attention. But Deion Sanders going to Cleveland would be something that would like really be unbelievably interesting. I don't think it'd be a good hire. I don't frankly think Deion's a really good coach, especially not an NFL coach. But I'll tell you what, man, like he would love to coach. I think he would love it. He'd love to coach Shador. It wouldn't go very well on the field product, but it never usually does for the Browns. But they would have a lot of attention and a lot of eyeballs. And one thing that Deion Sanders could do is market the hell out of the team and sell a lot of stuff and get a lot of eyeballs to go on the Browns. But I think that that's really far-fetched, but that would at least be fun. Otherwise, I have no clue. Like, I don't think Mike McCarthy would go there, but he's the kind of coach that would work. Like, I could see that working. Got a lot of experience. You know, he'd at least be able to get the most out of what he gets there in Cleveland. I just don't think he would go there as his third stint as a head coach. So it'll be interesting. It'll be really interesting to see. I don't even know what Cleveland Browns fans want. But who the heck knows? So I think it's interesting, man. I'd love to know what y'all think below in the comments. I think we went through all of the vacancies individually. And listen, like this affects the draft mightily, right? It affects the way that these teams are going to be going and drafting mightily because, the Raiders, obviously free agency can be big, but like, if the Raiders end up getting a head coach and the head coach has ties to a quarterback that he's had success with and they become available via trade or free agency, then all of a sudden you can see them going that route and giving up the number one pick for a big haul or whatever it might be. But if they end up sticking with the number one pick and they go with Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore, because those are kind of the two names, you start to hear a lot of negative things about Mendoza when he becomes the consensus number one. That usually is just more of people trying to, calm the waters a little bit. You see it a lot early, like well before the draft, and then you start to see it as we get really close. So I don't know, but I think Mendoza is really good. I don't know how he fits necessarily with the Raiders, but that could be big because like let's play the hypothetical game. Let's say Clint Kubiak goes to the Raiders, which I think would be a really a good fit too, and he could handpick his quarterback. That's massive. That's really, really big because now you're like, all right, our head coach is handpicking his guy. This is who he wants to roll with. He has the pick of the litter, whatever QB he wants, he can get him. And then they've got Ashton Genty, and you trust that he's going to be able to build the offensive line out. That would be something that I think immediately makes a lot of sense for the Raiders, getting an offensive-minded coach. If you're going with a defensive-minded guy like a Brian Flores, for example, then it's very different. Right? You got to hope that you have success. You got to hope that you get the right offensive coordinator to be able to work with the young quarterback. And if he has a lot of success, he's probably gone. And then now in year two, he's looking at a new system. And there's a lot of that goes down. So, there's always so many different things that can happen overall when it comes to the draft and the head coaching hiring and all of that. So I think it's fun. I'm really excited to see how this plays out. Usually these things aren't filled until officially fully filled until after the Super Bowl. But at least the week heading into the Super Bowl, most of them are finished. Like last year, I think every team had their vacancy filled, with the exception of the Saints, who they knew they were going to hire Kellen Moore. They were just waiting for the Super Bowl to be done. So, the next 2 to 3 weeks, these things will all be filled. We'll know a lot more. And then I think that we'll discuss those and talk about how it pertains to the draft. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Appreciate you guys, man. Please subscribe. Let's try to grow this channel. And check out my other channel, Marquee Sports Denver, where we talk about the Broncos. We have a lot of fun there as well. So I love interacting with everyone. Even if you're not a Bronco fan, I love to interact with you, and I'd love to have you on the channel too. Just talk some ball. So appreciate y'all. Have a wonderful day, and peace out.